So here's a little trick that I've been doing to optimize my cards. Okay, so this is especially useful. This little trick is especially useful when you have a bunch of pieces of information that are easily confused, like things that you could like. It's easy to say, okay, lumbar splanchnic. Is it T12? Well, obviously it's lumbar. Let's say least splanchnic, T12, or is it T10? Is the greater splanchnic not T10? Or is the greater splanchnic the aortic renal ganglia? Or is it the renal plexus? Like there's especially this one layer, there's the renal plexus and the renal ganglia, renal ganglia. And it's least or lesser. Like that's so easy to confuse. And I need to know these. So there's 12 pieces of information in this whole slide here. Like you have the name, you have the spinal level, and you have the place that it synapses. So that's 12 different ways that you can combine this and confuse it. So the way I have been more efficient at memorizing pieces of information like this is making multiple choice. So here we go. So where does the preganglionic sympathetic greater splanchnic synapse? Well, that synapse is at C, the celiac ganglion. Bam. Okay, so this is testing me to compare these pieces of information with each other. So now let's just change this. This is just my efficient way that I have gone through understanding confusing pieces of information that could easily be confused. They're not individually, they're not confusing. It's that it's easy to mix these things up. All right, so the renal, let's see here. That's the aortic. So that's B. This is so easy, and I just have to copy and paste this thing back, and then I go back here. So I'm going to make the least here, least splanchnic, and that is the renal plexus. That's A. Look at this. Isn't that easy? So now I've just individually made 4 different cards, but I can see them, and I get better at comparing. With multiple choice, you just get good at comparing what the answer is with the correct answer, with the question to the correct answer, with all the wrong answers. I think that's really good. Like, yeah, you can just memorize it as the greater splanchnic is the celiac ganglion, but when you see all the other answers, are you going to be able to identify it? Like, you know what I mean? This is how I've been going through this. Okay, now with the same style of card making, I'm going to try to memorize all these spinal levels. So I've already made one, and I'm gonna paste it here. So the spinal levels are a little easier. Well, maybe not easier, but they're just numbers. I don't have to remember a name. So I threw this guy in there. It's not in this list, but it's just easy to confuse because I might be like, oh, well, the top one, the greater, the highest one, easy, T5. Well, if I throw this little distractor in there, maybe I'll confuse myself. So that's a nice way to like the middle ones, that's easy to confuse. The lower one, that might be easy to get, but oh well. I might not even ask myself what the lumbar splanchnic is. But this way, I can go through and memorize all these guys, all the spinal levels. The lesser, same mentality. You're testing. Like, yeah, I can memorize that the lesser splanchnic is T10 to T11, but when I see T12, would that like sometimes throw me off? In an exam, sometimes it stinks that I'll go for that kind of question because I'm just like second guessing myself. So I want to put myself into a situation where I can second guess myself and get it wrong. Okay, and I think that's a really good study technique. Is put yourself and yeah, you can memorize it one way, but then when you see other answers, do you start second guessing yourself? And I know a lot of people do that. So here's this one, and then I'll make the last one. I'll do a least. You can get really crazy with this if you wanted to. So I'll make a least here. This is D. I'm not going to do the lumbar because I think I can memorize that it's L1. I mean, the word lumbar is in the thing, so that just saves me time. I don't have to make more cards. That's another way that I'm getting away of not making so many cards. If I can like figure out, okay, it's L1, L2. Well, you know what? Just for shits and giggles, let's do it. Why not? Why not? Because I get a little nervous. I'm like, oh, will I really know that? It's good to put it in, but I might not have had to put this one in, but it'll be an easy card to do. What's nice is this is going to be a really easy card, and then I'll get through it really quickly, So yeah, I made an extra card, but man, it's not too bad. I'll memorize it. Here, I'm trying to be more like a an exam writer. Okay, I'm gonna make like a. I think this is like a second order question. You know, the first one I was just asking, what's the spinal level of the lesser splanchnic? But now I'm asking, like, what spinal level does this ganglion come from? Okay, so that means that you already need to know that this is the lesser splanchnic. The answer is still T10, but it's just another level of difficulty that you can make these. These kind of questions, they're not too many on the exam. Sometimes there's, well, sometimes there is second order, but this just makes things a lot more confusing. You can make your cards this way. I encourage you to do that occasionally, is to go a little deeper. Ask yourself deeper questions, because if you can make questions for yourself that are similar to the style of the questions you're going to see on the exam, then it's just easier for your brain to like adapt. You know, you're not like shocked when you see some weird question. You've already, like, sometimes I've made questions for myself in this style, and they've come up on the exam like, whoa, I knew what they were thinking in this style, or sometimes almost the exact same, like the same like piece of information that they want us to learn. I had made the same kind of multiple choice options. It was like, whoa, it's kind of cool. So this is another way to do it. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the absolute worst way that I used to do to make cards. The worst way to make these cards would be, just so passive. I'm just taking a photo of this. I know some people do this, but I think this is just too passive. So I've taken a photo, and I'm going to do an image occlusion of this. I've seen people do this online. I think it's very passive. I don't think it really tests your knowledge. I think you're just blindly making cards. So I've seen people online do this, and I think it's just too passive. But what they'll do is something like this. Here, 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 here. I don't even know how you do that because you got this thing in the way. I've seen people do this where they do this kind of thing where it's just mindless, like just blocking. Oh, and here, I need to know this too. Yeah. See, oh yeah, and I just, bam, I've just made 10 cards. You know, it's like, it's too passive. It doesn't really push your knowledge in any way. I mean, it's just, I think this is a useless way to make cards. I think I did this sometimes, especially when I was lazy. Don't do this. This is not a good way. Try to make cards in a way that you're actually going to be asked. This is extremely first order. You know, where you can see this, it's like, what's the spinal level? Oh, and the worst part about this with your memorization is you're just getting used to seeing this with the spinal level, and you start doing like this this kind of spatial mapping where you just get good at knowing where each one, you know that which one is which because of the order that they're in. Okay. Don't do this. Don't do this. Okay, this is literally how I used to make cards in term 1. This is a better example of like what I used to do, which I still think is really dumb. It's not as dumb as just doing the image occlusion way where you're just like passively taking it. At least this way, I've kind of synthesized it. I didn't put synapse in celiac ganglion. I'm just memorizing it as like little short phrases. Celiac. Aortico-renal. So when I see that key word, I'll know that, bam, that goes with this one. But this is still like a ton of information on one card that I would try to, like I would go like this. Like this, I'd go through each spinal level. This card is just it just becomes a mess. It just becomes a total mess when you do it this way. But I used to do this. And the problem is these cards are super confusing. You know, it's like, what am I even trying to learn here? Or I'd probably be mean to myself and be like, I can learn all these in one shot, so they're all going to be ones. You know, something like that, where I have to learn all these in one shot. Like, this is just a mess. Don't make cards like this. This is exactly what I used to do. This is totally what I used to do. You know, there's some benefits because I do think there's a benefit of writing it yourself. You know, make a card, type everything out instead of like just taking a photo of something. Try to shorten it into little pieces of information. Okay. I'm missing that it's a plexus rather than a ganglion, but I think I could figure out that it's I think I could figure out that goes with the lumbar. Those kind of things. I know that that's like the innervation like bundle. But this is just a mess. I think the multiple choice is probably the best way to go through, because then it's nice and clean. I'm only asking one question per card. And although I'm having to make a card for each one, it didn't take me that long to do that because I was just copying and pasting. And, it's just really clean. I'm asking one question and I'm getting one answer. Not where it's like, oh, this huge mess, and I'm going to answer just parts of this each time. I get it's just too much. It doesn't test your knowledge in a good way.